The internet has been amusing itself over recent days with speculation that President Trump is not in great health, maybe even not that long for this world. That speculation is what it is. It's not the sort of thing I discuss much here, but it inevitably drew the attention to the question of what would happen were Trump to meet an early end before his term was over. And of course, what would happen would be that J.D. Vance would ascend to the presidency. But it's a bit more significant than that, because Vance is very much aligned with the tech bro wing of MAGA. And if Trump were to exit before the end of his term, whatever fight there was going to be between traditionalist Trump-style MAGA supporters and tech bro MAGA supporters that was going to happen in the election of Trump's successor, well, that wouldn't happen. It would largely be pre-decided in Vance's favour. And this is key because if the United States is to descend into a full-blown, mature autocracy, the thing you should most be nervous of is that it will be a full-blown, mature autocracy powered by the most sophisticated artificial intelligence models. We already saw some of the foreshadowing of this when Trump declared that the American people do not want woke Marxist lunacy in the AI models. One might riposte that it'd be good to avoid lunacy of any sort in the models, but this of course is the challenge, when the US has become so polarised and lunacy is very much in the eyes of a beholder. Bear in mind, all an AI chatbot has to do is to correctly talk about the research evidence behind climate change, or to correctly talk about the track record of vaccines in saving lives. And as far as many MAGA loyalists would be concerned, you don't have a system giving you facts, you have one pushing woke ideology. The actual examples given in Trump's executive order on preventing woke AI in the federal government draws on more trivial examples, such as the glitch early last year when Google's AI image generator kept producing black popes and black Vikings as well as black founding fathers. The company quickly apologised, of course, and corrected the coding that had resulted in the errors, but it had already by then entered the MAGA lexicon as representing the self-evident truth that AI was going to be yet another tool to drive wokeism and to rewrite history along approved lines. The fact is that AI large language models are going to reflect the biases of the material they're trained on, and they are going to reflect the values of their society, which are to be found in the material they're trained on. Now it gets tricky if you have one side that's decided to equate facts with ideology, because you can end up with an AI that just reflects reality, and in so doing it declares itself in the eyes of many as taking a side. And into that basic conundrum comes the Trump administration, promising to give government funding only to models that display, quote, truth-seeking, not about wind turbines or climate change obviously, and ideological neutrality. In China, regulators there require AI to embody core socialist values, and the regulators train them to avoid tricky topics, such as the killing of protesters in Tiananmen Square in 1989. One can only suspect that Trump's ideological neutrality will turn out to be a euphemism for similar alignment with the official thoughts of Chairman MAGA. But really, that's the least of it. If we have a Trump in place for the next 3.5 years, probably that is what it's going to be. Lots of noise, lots of trivia. But if we have a J.D. Vance, that's the point where the tech visionaries really get brought into the heart of government, which would now be led by someone who can understand what they tell him, buy into their vision. The questions then get a lot sharper. When testifying to a Senate committee a couple of months ago, OpenAI's Sam Altman said that the future of AI could be bright, but only, he said, quote, if an American-led AI built on democratic values like freedom and transparency prevails over an authoritarian one. We are in an AI arms race after all, that's the common perception, and Chinese AI is presumed, by the US at least, to be the vehicle for an authoritarian surveillance state. Not just to finally cement its total control at home, but potentially more effectively to export that same state across the rest of the world. Right, it's all very well in theory. American AI as the digital Superman, dedicated to selflessly championing truth, justice, and the American way. What if the American way is no longer about truth and justice, to the extent that it ever was? I mean, you can debate that. What we've seen with the tech firms, and particularly with the politically engaged visionary tech bros that are best buds with JD Vance, is sure, they've had to embrace MAGA and Trump as a vehicle to further wealth creation and power for themselves. They've embraced it despite the obvious downsides, the anti-sciencism of the administration, the strong element of potluck as to whether one day the president might not wake up grumpy, decide that maybe he wants a 10% stake in your business, or to slap a tariff on one of your key materials. The AI companies did get Trump successfully to cut a lot of the Biden administration regulations to give the industry a green light to go forth and develop whatever they can without worrying too much about some of the boring technicalities, like AI becoming self-aware and starting World War III, that sort of thing. Trump slightly pompously declared, "Our children will not live in a planet controlled by the algorithms of our adversaries." If you're American, that is, because the rest of us will end up in that position anyway, because Trump's America is behaving like an adversary and is behaving like it doesn't value freedom. So the idea that its policy will be enhanced and enabled by whatever AI tools Palantir or whoever else can come up with, not necessarily a comforting notion. But, as Matthew Wong points out in a piece last week in The Atlantic, it's not even the US federal government that is developing these AI systems. It is the private major tech firms, led by people who have ideas about how society should best be governed, and open, democratic and free. They are not the words that they frequently come up with. Wong notes that Hillary Clinton once described interacting with Meta's Mark Zuckerberg as, quote, negotiating with a foreign power. Think about that for a moment. Because yes, the tech companies have built vast digital empires across the world. Their products have demonstrably changed our public discourse, and not for the better. They have the US government threatening to take action against anyone who constrains them or taxes them. Now, is that for America's interest, or is it purely America operating on behalf of the tech giants alone? For now, for all that the nerdy masters of the universe have big ideas, reshaping our societies even further, putting AI in charge of most of the jobs, using AI to better know everything about you, whether you consented to it or not. And you have to imagine using AI to better govern societies that are fit for the tech gods to rule over. For all of that, right now, they have to flatter Trump. They have to tell him they're nominating him for a Nobel Peace Prize. Hell, maybe even a Nobel Prize for Physics if someone ever tells him that that's a thing. It means that whatever they think should be done has to be rendered into the language of stupid for the benefit of a man in the White House. But yes, if it turned out that suddenly it's JD Vance sitting behind the big desk in the Oval Office, well, expect to find the language, the public aspirations, and the ambition ramping up quite quickly. My principle is that you should never wish mortal ill on people anyway. It erodes part of your own humanity, if nothing else. For all that I know, some people, understandably, but I still say wrongly, some people would celebrate if Trump's body failed to see him through a complete term in office. Putting the humanity of that to one side, I think you should probably be very careful about what you wish for. Because like Vladimir Putin in Russia, what would likely come to the fore following the removal of the current leader would not likely represent a step forward, quite probably the exact reverse. Now, that may be wrong. Maybe JD Vance is just waiting for the chance to restore democratic norms. But, well, I don't know about you, I won't be putting my life savings on that particular bet anytime soon.